Hey guys, how's it going? I've been meditating pretty much every day now for the past 6 years, and in this video I really just wanted to share my journey up until this point and the way that meditation has affected my life. I do think out there at the moment there is quite a lot of misinformation about the effects and the benefits that you can hope to achieve with meditation. So in this video I'm just going to outlay everything as I've seen it, no bullshit, to give anyone who's maybe either starting their meditation journey or has been doing it for 1 or 2 years, a bit of an insight into where it can take you. First, I'm just going to run through the short-term benefits of meditation, which to be honest is the simplest thing to describe. And then we're going to get into a bit more of the tricky territory of the longer-term effects that meditation can have, from personality change up to sort of spiritual experiences. Just a caveat on talking about any of this kind of thing: when someone talks about the long-term benefits that they've seen from meditation, it's impossible to isolate meditation or mindfulness as a practice from everything else that's happened in their lives. So while I'm talking about these general changes that I've seen over my life over the last 6 years, just take everything with a pinch of salt, because there's obviously other things that I've incorporated into my life and just the natural process of aging, which also might be a contributing factor in some of these changes that I've seen. Let's first start with the short-term benefits of meditation. And when I talk about short-term here, you've got to understand that meditation is a very subtle practice. So even these benefits, they're probably going to take about 6 months or so for you to really start seeing. So one of the first things that you're going to notice is definitely a reduced level of anxiety. This might not manifest itself straight away. You might actually start by becoming more anxious just because the practice itself involves you being in your body, and if you're used to distracting yourself with your smartphone or with TV when you become anxious, actually being with that feeling is going to be something that you're not used to. However, once you've started to implement the practice and got comfortable with it, after a few months, you're definitely going to start to notice that things that perhaps previously triggered you, for me this was like maybe being late for a meeting or missing a train, things of this nature that aren't really like the be all and end all, but for a lot of people give them a small level of anxiety. Those things just won't become a problem anymore. They will nearly completely dissipate, or that's how it's worked in my experience. And I think generally that's a positive. When you're in a position where you can't necessarily alter the outcome, if you're late for a train and you're doing all you can to get there as quick as you can, there's no point obviously worrying about it. So that's definitely one of the first benefits that you're going to see from meditation in a fairly short amount of time. The second noticeable benefits of meditation that you're going to see early on is, if you perform meditation sort of first thing in the day, you're going to find it easier to set yourself up for a series of flow activities from then on. So for those who aren't aware, a flow activity is just when you're completely absorbed in the activity itself. It's when you're at that limit between challenging work but also feeling comfortable within it, when your productivity is the highest. And because you'll have started the day with a practice that involves deep concentration on one thing, you're going to find it easier to slip into that deep work flow state. So yeah, definitely another benefit of meditation that you're going to see pretty early on. The third and probably most underrated benefit or short-term benefit of meditation is it actually lends itself really well to stacking more positive habits on top of it. Now, when I first started meditating, pretty much the only other positive habit that I had was going to the gym. But after I implemented meditation into my routine, I then started journaling, I then started setting out half an hour or an hour a day to work on my own business, I then started working on my mobility. I think the reason that meditation is such an effective tool to start getting that habit stack going is it's just such an easy practice to implement. Even if you really don't feel like it, you can, to be honest, just sit down and doss around for 20 minutes in your own thoughts, not really paying attention to your breath, not really paying attention to the body. And even though the actual practice itself isn't going to be effective, the fact that you've done it and you continue to do it every single day means that you really build a confidence in yourself that, hey, I can be disciplined, I can maintain this habit for an extended period of time. So I'd say even if you're not necessarily convinced about the longer term benefits of meditation, just for this one reason, that it makes it easier to stack habits on top of themselves, is probably a convincing argument to give it a try. Let's now talk about the personality changes that come with meditation. Now, these are changes that are going to start manifesting themselves very subtly over a number of years. So don't necessarily get scared thinking, if I start meditating tomorrow, I'm going to wake up a different person. That's not how it works, or at least not in my experience. But one thing I would say is, if you are really set that you are who you are as a person and you don't want to change at all, I wouldn't recommend meditation to you. It is going to change your personality in subtle ways, and actually in some fairly major ways. I personally think this is interesting. I think life would be boring if you were just the same person every single day. So I actually sort of view this as a benefit, but definitely want to bear in mind that personality is probably going to change slightly. For me, the most obvious example of this was that I definitely became more introverted. Before I started meditating, I would always have to be around friends. I really enjoyed socializing all the time, and definitely would, describe myself as an extrovert. There's actually some data to back this up, because I used to do, those Myers-Briggs tests that you have to do when you're applying for jobs and things like that. And I would always pretty much score top of the charts for extroversion. And now when I take them, I'm pretty much bang in the middle of introvert and extrovert. I think the reason that this happens is because you are just basically being very insular when you're meditating, very much focusing on the body and the breath. You do find it to be quite a restorative exercise. So whereas before you might gain your energy as an extrovert from being around other people, going to a bar, going to a club, socializing, once you start recognizing that through meditation you can really get a lot of energy and a lot of peace of mind, that starts to become slightly more appealing. And that in turn means that when you're given the offer to go out with friends and socialise, sometimes you're going to turn that down just in order to be on your own and recharge. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with this. Introverts and extroverts can definitely be happy. But having said that, extroverts have definite advantages. If you're looking to create a business and it's going to involve connecting with a lot of people, then you're probably going to want to be the type of character that is always taking up every opportunity to go out and socialise. So just want to bear in mind that if you are looking to seriously consider taking up a meditation practice, at least in my experience, it definitely did lead to me being a little bit more introverted. The second personality change that I've seen through meditation is that generally you become a little bit less emotionally reactive. And what I mean by that is, whereas sort of 5 or 6 years ago, again maybe this could be an age thing, but certain things would get me really excited, or certain things would make me really upset or really angry. I now find that although I can definitely feel those things, there's definitely a barrier, and it's like I have a choice on whether I react on those things or not. So an example of this was a few months ago. I was with my girlfriend and my family, and we saw this guy on the side of the road having a heart attack, and he actually ended up dying. And my girlfriend at the time was obviously quite distressed and was a little bit concerned maybe that I wasn't showing any distress at all. And it's not because I wasn't feeling that, it's just at that moment in time you can sort of make the choice about whether you want to feel a certain way or not. And this has its benefits, but it definitely does have its disadvantages, because you can come across a bit like you're not completely human, or that you don't feel anything. And it's not really like that at all, because you can be watching a film and crying your eyes out, or going to an art exhibition and being really moved, but it just gives you that sort of little buffer between this is what's happening and this is how you're feeling. So now let's talk about the sort of changes in the actual practice itself. So the sitting down for 20 minutes and watching your breath, or whatever you're going to do, that you could expect to achieve after 5 or so years of practicing meditation. The first thing I just want to make really clear is I still feel like an absolute amateur at meditating. I really don't feel that I am masterful in any way, which is quite surprising really, because if you've dedicated 20 minutes a day for 5 years, you probably would expect to have seen a real noticeable improvement. If I bench pressed for 20 minutes a day for 5 years, I'm going to be able to bench press probably like 3 times the weight than when I started. The same with if you take up a writing habit. If you even just write for like 20 minutes a day for 5 years, you're going to see after that time considerable improvements in your writing. And this is where meditation can be a little bit fickle. Because it's so hard to measure how you're progressing, it's really difficult for me to see if I'm better now than I was when I started. I'm sure I must be slightly better, but there's always that doubt of how good am I actually at this, and I still find it very difficult to even just clear my mind for 30 seconds sometimes, or even less. And sometimes I'll have really bad days where I'm meditating and I don't even manage to focus on 2 or 3 breaths. So just something to bear in mind, that even with deliberate focused practice every day, you're probably not going to be able to, even after 5 years, get to that idealised idea that you might have in your head that I'm going to be able to sit down and completely clear my mind for 20 minutes. One other thing that it's probably worth mentioning is, just like you can have talented athletes or people who are talented at maths or at art, I also think with meditation there is definitely a natural talent that encompasses it. And I definitely don't think that that's something that I have. So your results might be slightly better than mine after 5 years. I have friends, for example, that I've been on retreats with, and they might only sporadically practice, yet when we sit down and do the sessions, they come away from it like, oh, I managed to get into this really incredible state, and I'm there like, mate, what are you talking about? I've been doing this for years, and you seem to be better at it than me. But let's talk about spirituality. This is actually quite a difficult topic to cover, purely because nearly everyone probably has a different definition of what spirituality actually is. To me, spirituality just means having a sort of broader sense of what's going on in the universe and getting some perspective, and really just recognising what a tiny blip you are in the cosmos of time. Now, through meditation, I've actually only ever experienced one non-dual state. So these are the states where you completely dissociate from the physical world around you, and you recognise that you're like at oneness with everything. It sounds a bit woo-woo, and it is, but when you experience one of these, you'll understand. So if that's the sort of thing that you're looking for, I wouldn't necessarily recommend meditation as a tool. I think there's a lot more effective ways to achieve these non-dual or awakened states than purely just doing meditation on its own. I think one of the worst things that you can actually do when starting your meditation practice is to have unrealistic expectations of where that's going to take your spirituality. If you're comparing yourselves to monks, maybe you've read like a few books written by like Tibetan monks about the clarity of mind they have and how connected they feel with everything, I just think that's it's completely unrealistic. These people, their lives is sitting around for 10, 12 hours a day, purely meditating, doing nothing else. Our lives are completely different, We probably work in a job where we're having to switch between 500 tasks in a day. We're bombarded with more and more stimulating social media and TV and entertainment. So even if you're practicing meditation for 20 minutes every day, do you really think that's going to offset the hours and hours of time that you're spending in a completely non-meditative state? So yeah, I really do think when it comes to implementing your own meditation practice, if you live in the Western world, if you have what we consider a normal life, really have as low expectations as you possibly can when it comes to spirituality. So just to give you a conclusion about how I view my meditation journey over the last 6 years, I'm definitely glad I took it up as a practice. I think generally it's been pretty beneficial to my life. It's, I think, helped me with focusing. I really think it's helped me build other great habits on top of it. And generally I do quite like how it's made me a bit less reactive to things going on that aren't in my control. Having said that, like, it's not all positive. Like, I quite liked it when I was a really extroverted guy, when I get a lot of energy from being around people. And now that that's not necessarily the case, it's just different. It's just a different way of living. So thanks a lot for making it to the end of the video. If you like this video, press subscribe. Every week I'm putting out videos generally on the ideas and concepts of living a simpler life. Thanks.